Bam. How are you this evening? Didn't expect to see me at 8:45 at night, did you? My description says streaming daily at 9 a.m. and it's 15 minutes before 9 a.m. here Central Time. So what's going on? Well, we've had a long day. That's it. We've had a long day. It just keeps going. Oh my gosh. Notice this is not even today. We're gonna fix that. If that made a scratch, I'm sorry. It's too short, little thing. So I mean, I think it's even sitting on the thing. So that's no good. How are you this evening? I know it's weird. I'm going to hit that so you can see that I'm actually in the chat. I know it's strange. I know you're not used to seeing me at this time of night. I do have another live stream that I do every once in a while. Our nature of employment. I haven't done it in a while, and I need to get back to it. But I've just been so, I don't know. I've been out of sync, and this is just a clear sign of me being out of sync. I'd intended to have this live stream done maybe around 10 this morning, and it just didn't happen. So some of you may have been, you might be looking at my channel for the first time. You might be seeing me for the first time. And you're like, who's this guy, and what is it about? Well, my name is John Schenk, and I am a real estate broker in St. Louis, Missouri. I have my own real estate firm, Deerwood Realty, and we basically help buyers buy homes and help sellers sell theirs. Now, on the live streams, I like to talk about real estate issues. I like to talk about like kind of pop culture things. I like people to get an idea of who I am, just because I think that's good. So I do some commentary, but yeah, that's what I'm about. Not the greatest intro ever. My voice is a little bit off. I can tell it's like cloudy tonight, but we're going to get through it. And I wanted to start off by setting up a scenario for you that happens all too often to me in the business. And here we go. So this morning, I got a text from my buyers. I have a bunch of buyers, and so they text me and email me and call me, and it's fine. So I got a text, and it was an address and a picture of a house. It was a screenshot, and the buyer said, "Hey man, can you look this house up? When can we go take a look?" So I wasn't at my. I don't know if you realize this, but the interface between the MLS for us, the multiple listing service, and a phone is just terrible. There's no app that we can just go on that we can just look up properties. We have to go through the website, which means we have to log in twice. Then we have to try and and then it's on a little screen on your phone. I mean, it's just a nightmare. And so I typically don't look up stuff on my phone because it's just terrible. The user interface sucks. And so, like if I'm driving, if I'm in a place where I'm not at my desk, then I'll say, sure, let me check that out and I'll get back to you. Well, a couple hours passed because I was doing some other things, and I know some of you might attack me for waiting that long, but if you understood like the volume of questions I get in text about properties, the property inquiries, you would be surprised. Let's put it that way. So I look, and I said, sure, I'd be happy to show it. First off, though, the buyer said, this seems like a perfect house for me. Now, we've been looking for houses for 6 months, and this house happened to have a 2-car garage. I know that the buyer wants a 3-car garage, so I don't waste my time with 2-car garages because that's what the buyer says. Now, today it was, well, I would like to look at this house anyway. And honestly, if there's any pushback from the perspective of my buyers, they say, I want to look at something, I have conviction. That having conviction to me is a good thing. It means like, okay, they are very interested, so let's go ahead and set an appointment. Now, I go to set an appointment, and the property is still active in the MLS. But I look at the description, and it says that the offers are due Monday morning at 10 a.m. And so today, my understanding is it's Wednesday night. but during the day it was Wednesday, so it wasn't Monday and it wasn't 10 o'clock. So then it set an expiration time of, I'd say, I believe it was the 24th. So it was very odd for the distance. Normally it's like the day after is the expiration on the offers that you write. So anyway, I called the agent because I like the buyers, and I called the agent. I said, "Are you still, is this under contract and we're just not we're not posting it yet?" And she said, "Yeah." And that's not her fault. They have as many offers as they want, and now they're going to the relocation company, which is the other thing I wanted to talk about. And now those people will make a decision, and they'll take their sweet time. And meanwhile, the agent will get calls from now until, or at least from Monday afternoon until whenever the house goes pending in Maris, our MLS service, has the property available for showing. But it's bad because when my buyer asks me to show something, okay, and I tell them that it's sold, but they can look on realtor.com, they can look on Zillow, they can look at anything else, and they can see that the property is still active. It makes me look like a liar. I don't particularly like that. I'm not lying. I literally called the agent and asked, hey, is the property still available? She said no. Offers were due Monday at 10, and we had multiple offers, and we will be getting to the point where the sellers make a decision as of such and such date. Now, I didn't particularly like this property. The reason why I didn't like it is because, number one, the argument that you're going to add another garage is not likely in this subdivision. You'd have to go through so many meetings and conferences and design. It would end up costing more than it would be worth by far. The relocation stuff, it's not, when you do a relocation, it's not the seller actually selling the house. It's the third party relocation firm buys the house, and then they sell it to you, but it's right at the same time. Agents, in my opinion, get kind of the shaft because the commission on a relocation is terrible. They'll take the relocation company will take between 35 and like 45%. So it's just like, and by the time you do that, and by the time you get your your brokerage, whatever you owe for that commission, I mean, it's just nasty on the listing side. So I don't kick those agents too hard. But as for representing buyers agents, are they deals? Not really. There's not a lot of wiggle room. In this market, like there was a special agreement to be added that said that if the property doesn't appraise, you're still going to buy it no matter what, which is fine, except for if it goes into default, all you're going to get is the escrow money, even if you come with the agent. Not that I'm a lawyer, but that's kind of just what I've seen happen over time. But again, I'm left with, now they saw the property on, they saw the property on, let's see, what day was it? They saw the property yesterday, or I'm sorry, this morning, and now it's going to be active in the MLS for 2 days before it goes pending, and they're going to think that I lied. So it's frustrating. I showed a house last night, and one of the things that was surprising to me in this case is on Sunday, I got a text, Father's Day, I got a text about this house, and it didn't work out that day for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, Monday morning I looked it up. I asked if they still wanted to go. They said yes. We looked at the appointments. There were no appointments for Monday night available, so I asked if they would want to go Tuesday. They said yes. I didn't have any belief in the world that house would still be available by Tuesday night, but even as I kept watching it the whole time, it did not go. It did not go pending, and so I went out there with my buyer, and we looked at the house. And to me, it's a nice house. It wasn't good for the buyer. There were some things that the buyer was kind of wanting, and this house didn't have that, and so that was a little disappointing. Also, one thing I wanted to point out in that showing, and something that you wouldn't believe if you list your house, but there's these things that you can do that can make buyers be more interested. And one of the odd things that I think is surprising is if you vacuum the house, like people like to see the vacuum marks. One of the things that I like to have my sellers do is wash the windows, or get them washed. You'd be shocked at how much better a house looks with clean windows from the inside looking out. So on that house, the reason why it didn't sell is it was too expensive. The asking price was too high. And you say, well, as a seller, we should go to the market really high because you only have one chance to set the price. And while I understand that, you run into a situation like you have to understand that if you're a buyer's agent and you're writing an offer in the first week and it's not for full asking in this market, you're kind of insulting the seller. And so while I think this particular house was probably overpriced by maybe 20 grand, I'm not going to write an offer 20 grand lower on the first week that the house is available. I mean, that's just the way it is. I'm not proud of the fact that you say, well, John, you should do it anyway. If your buyer says you should go write an offer, you should do it. And I agree with that. I would do it. But the end result is still the same. You get an angry seller, you get an upset listing agent, and you don't get the house. And you don't even get a chance, like some people would say, well, you get a chance to get a counter in or something like that. Well, no, you don't, because when you've angered someone that badly, they don't write counters. They just tell you to buzz off. Like they're going to sell the house, but it's not going to be to you under any circumstance. And so, there's this idea that real estate agents are professionals and that buyers and sellers aren't professionals, and therefore they need the assistance of, buyers agents and listing agents. And I tend to agree with that because what I see buyers and sellers doing oftentimes is screwing up deals it's not necessary. It's not necessary to screw up the deal. And so you say, well, how's that? Well, one of those is you asked for the highest price. I mean, you asked for a price that's $20,000 and $30,000 over what any comp shows in the neighborhood. That's typically a tell on the seller side that you're not going to have a good time selling. Even in this market, which has been the best market ever for sellers, you still kind of have to price it close to something to start, even if somebody does come in $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over asking. So that's one of the things. On the buyer side, how do you screw up a contract? Well, you ask for too many concessions. You don't have solid financing in place. Your offer changes even after it's accepted. Like, oh my gosh, I can't close this day. Can we move it? There's subtle hints that the deal is not going to go very well and that you kind of sabotaged it on your own. So anyway, I do wonder, I might be sensitive to the idea that my buyers may feel like they're lying to me because when I was working in one office, I have a very good friend that's a real estate agent, and in that office, and she was showing houses to a couple, and they were convinced that they weren't getting all the houses available for sale, that somehow my friend, the agent, was blocking them from seeing certain houses. And this stemmed, believe it or not, from an agent that they had worked with in a different state many years before was actually doing that. I don't know exactly what the reasoning was behind it, but my way that I run my business is pretty simple. I will show you anything that you'd like to see. If it's below my standard compensation, I will tell you ahead of time. And then if we go see it and you want to put an offer, just know that you're going to be putting in some money on the table when I ask, when we close, because I can't drive around for free. I do drive around a lot. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on those things. I wanted to bring up something and it came through my head, and you may be able to go back to the video and watch it, but it went through. I was going to transition to something else, and I lost it. I absolutely lost it. I have no idea where it went. But I'm trying to think of where it went. It's gone. It's gone. So I guess we'll move on to different topics. So one of the things that I wrote down today, as an agent, you never want to disappoint on the buyer side. You never want to disappoint your buyers. And so, when you have to tell them like, hey, a property's already gone under contract. Hey, we didn't get the house. It's not fun. It's disappointing. Hey, the inspection came back and it's horrible. Hey, the appraisal came back and it didn't appraise. I mean, bad news after bad news after bad news. And you're dealing with good people, there's no question. But man. So I was disappointed to have to go back to my buyers. They were already excited about going, just to tell them like it's not going to happen. And we're not going to be able to get in the house. And so, I don't know. I just thought I'd share that. That's what I've been doing. And then today, it just got to the point where I was, it was getting to be dinner time, so I ate dinner. I went for an evening walk with my wife, and it was, the best part of my day by far. So we've got lots of topics tonight. As you know, I've been kind of experimenting with the format, trying new things. I don't know that any of it's working. I don't think that the moving of the time isn't something I did on purpose. That was just circumstance. I just felt like I needed to get a live stream out. Oh, sorry. Here's the sleeping. So, as you know, I like to look at the news, like to look at things going on, and I wanted to share this thing I saw today on Google Trends. Can you see that? Let me just double check and see if it works out on mine. Okay. I'm going to go like this today. I tried a different format yesterday where I was in the middle, and I didn't particularly like it. So here we go. Here's the headline. It says Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, a product that's been sold in the U.S. since 1937, has updated packaging and a new name, Kraft Mac and Cheese. Check out the latest box. So I was looking at this, and it says, here's the old and the new. They changed the box. Like, this is a big deal, big enough to be noticed on Google Trends. It says Kraft is dropping the Roni from the name of its macaroni and cheese product, the company announced Wednesday. The box will now say Kraft Mac and Cheese, and it will have a more streamlined look. Americans have been buying the product, especially during hard times, since 1937. Now, that's kind of funny. I never equated it with hard times because, I don't know. I haven't been to the grocery store in a while to buy this particular product. But I can remember when I was in college, and of course that was 20 years ago, a box of macaroni and cheese would go for 79 cents. I felt like in college for 79 cents with some butter and milk, I could have myself a great meal. And so I ate a lot of macaroni and cheese, a lot. Then they did something where they said that the pigment, the yellow pigment, caused cancer or something. And so they got rid of it and made it all natural. And ever since then, I feel like they've done something to it. Now, would I take cancer over a pigment? I don't know. I really liked it. Maybe that seems odd, but okay. It says Kraft Macaroni and Cheese. It's getting a new look and a shorter moniker. While looking for a Friday night no energy meal or simply a cheap one, the box you're looking for will be a bit more streamlined later this summer. The new name is changing from Kraft Macaroni and Cheese to Kraft Mac and Cheese. Now, I've been calling it mac and cheese. I don't care. It says the name shortening is meant to reflect the way fans organically talk about the brand, the release said. Now, I don't know. I mean, everything's in this day and age is like brand identity, fans, followers. I mean, it's macaroni and cheese. I don't care. By the way, if you want to call it mac and cheese, I don't care. But it doesn't really do anything for me. It says, as The Hill reported, this is the latest in the series of box and branding changes for America's original and favorite comfort food, as Kraft called the product in its release. Now, what's great about a press release is you can literally write whatever you want to, and there's no really ability to respond. So is it America's original and favorite comfort food? I would say no. You say, well, John, what would be an original and favorite comfort food? I'm thinking pancakes. Is that wrong? But they're not branded. So it says, originally, according to Kron 4, a cable news station in San Francisco, the box was mostly yellow. So you're actually quoting a cable news station that the box was yellow. Now, I've seen other articles where it shows the original box and it was yellow. I just don't know that you needed to cite someone else about this. It says the latest version is almost all blue, except for a prominent noodle smile, which the company called the brand's most recognizable asset. The company says it sells over 1 million of these mac and cheese products a day. Now, I'm not joking. I had no idea there was a smile on the macaroni and cheese box. Literally, I just go look for the blue box and hope that it's not the spiral kind, because I hate that. And the original one is the one I want. And I didn't know there was a smile on the box, and I wouldn't care. I'm going to eat the macaroni and cheese. If it had a frown in it, I wouldn't care. It says Kraft was first to sell boxed mac and cheese. The product came out in 1937 and sold 50 million boxes during World War II. The company also said it saw increased sales after the pandemic hit, and that more parents fed the mac and cheese to kids for breakfast, part of a broader retreat into comfort food and likely an economic crunch. So they're going with, like, who? First of all, for those of you feeding your children macaroni and cheese for breakfast, I mean, seriously, we couldn't do like French toast sticks. I mean, I don't even understand. It's wrong. My dad eats it cold with ketchup. Oh. How do you eat your Kraft macaroni and cheese? Put it in the comments section below. Or, we could actually have a true chat where, like, there'd be people on the right-hand side writing stuff and I could respond to it. But, I mean, silly me for thinking that. It says, as inflation roars and gas prices cut into Americans' budgets, cheap and cheesy comfort might look even more appetizing. We know that when things get tough, people aren't turning to comfort food as a guilty pleasure. They are positively embracing comfort, saying yes to feeling good, saying yes to caring for themselves. Victoria Lee, Kraft Mac and Cheese brand manager, said in the release. So there's this narrative, no offense, there's this narrative that I'm understanding only by reading this, that the reason why Kraft Macaroni and Cheese has changed the design of their box, but keeping the smile that I knew nothing about, is because things are tough and they want to, it doesn't make any sense. It says it's unclear if the new box will accompany a price change. The company did not respond to a request for comment. In 2021, companies passed on price increases to consumers at a record-breaking clip. And here we go. Here's the new logo. Now, did you know that there was a smile? Oh, look at that. Now there's going to be a drip off of the smile. Apparently that's iconic. It says it has a new font also, as the release noted. Now, I don't know about you, but I mean, fonts are crazy. Like, there's like a billion of them. So here's a close up of the cheesy smiley that looks like that. I don't really care. Like, that's not my thing. I like macaroni and cheese. Do I eat it once a week anymore? No. I used to eat it like every 3 nights in college. Now, and it's not because I was a poor college student. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money, but I mean, I could afford ramen. I could afford whatever I wanted at the grocery store. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, I struggled through college and everything like that. Yeah, I get it. But, there's no way that everyone struggled through college. Like, every single human being did not struggle through college. They didn't all have to eat ramen. I mean, cut this out. If your parents were like billionaires, you didn't struggle through college. Okay. It didn't happen. If they were millionaires, you didn't struggle through college. If they were well off and college price, and your kid got some sort of scholarship, you didn't struggle. Have you seen colleges? I mean, you literally have a Starbucks pretty much at every every college. There's no struggling. I mean, colleges are like, college campuses are more like resorts where they have this odd politics where they yell at you all the time for everything. But I mean, this idea that because things are bad, we're going to go to macaroni and cheese. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Maybe we should be angry at the people that are making things bad. Who's making things bad? Look to the federal government first. Don't look at the corporations. Just look at the federal government first. Look at both parties, the people that run them, the higher echelons, and then look at the lobbyists. This is my opinion. You could disagree with me. You could say that it's somebody such and such's fault, but no, it's the whole thing. It's absolutely broken. It's not going to get fixed either. So, what else? Let's go on. Now, I want to do a comparative article for you. Now, as I've gotten older, I'm not a fan of globalization. Okay. Don't get me wrong. But I think everyone should have a healthy understanding that what happens in the United States may happen other places. In fact, we may get the disease of what other countries are doing before. And, there's a place for it. I mean, common law is like from England. I mean, been around for a few years. The response to different global pandemics, there's definitely a world component. And so I wanted to bring that to you with the real estate world and tenants and rentals. And so let's do that now. It's right here. Oh my gosh, look at all these ads. I can't even get to it. It says, no fault evictions and barring tenants on benefits to be outlawed in England. So I want to go over this. This is in England, but I wanted to go over it, and then we're going to go over an article in California, and we're going to kind of compare the two. So it says private rentals white paper also includes clamp down on unfit homes and plan to tackle bad landlords. So as far as I'm concerned, since the beginning of time when you leased your property to someone else, let them rent it, there's always been the conflict of the tenant and the landlord. There's just been that natural conflict. And over the years, I mean, I was in property management for quite a few years, and I understand from both sides how you can have that natural aggression, if you will. If you're a tenant and you're paying less than market rent, you're complaining that your house isn't perfect like one would be with paying market rent. And if you're a landlord, your tenants are always terrible. They never care for the property, and you always have to do work, and you don't want to, even though the house is falling apart over time. Like, it's always going to need repairs. It says measures to tackle unscrupulous private landlords who evict tenants without giving a reason or who let unsafe homes will be introduced under government proposals aimed, did I say measures to start? Anyway, at giving a better deal for millions of renters in England. It says the centerpiece of the Fair Private Rented Sector White Paper published by the government on Thursday is the outlawing of no-fault evictions, currently the biggest single cause of homelessness in England. The long-delayed paper will also set out proposals to force private landlords to improve the quality of damp, dirty, and unfit homes where conditions put the health of tenants at risk. A fifth of all private rented properties are estimated to be of substandard quality. Other measures include tackling arbitrary and unfair rent increases and steps to outlaw no DSS policies, whereby landlords operate a blanket ban on letting homes to people receiving benefits. Now, letting homes is leasing homes here in the United States, based on my reading. All tenants will have the right to request having a pet in the home, which landlords will not be able to unreasonably refuse. So in England, they're going to set it up so that you're allowed to have a pet no matter what. I mean, you've got to have a really, really good reason. The landlord has to have a really, really good reason why you can't have a pet. Understand that some dogs are very, very destructive. Not all dogs, and it's never the person's dog who's renting your property. It's just weird how somehow things turn out poorly. Michael Gove, let's go with that. The Leveling Up and Housing Secretary said, now the fact that they have a leveling up, I think that's funny. For too long, many private renters have been at the mercy of unscrupulous landlords who fail to repair homes and let families live in damp, unsafe, and cold properties with the threat of unfair, no-fault eviction orders hanging over them. Our new deal for renters will help to end this injustice by improving the rights and conditions for millions of renters as we level up across the country and deliver on the people's priorities. So this is the biggest priority in England right now is better rentals. That's what it says. I don't know. It says campaigners have welcomed the proposals, which are expected to be introduced in a renters reform bill later this year, more than 3 years since the government first pledged to end no-fault evictions. It says Polly Neat, I'm going with that, the chief executive of housing charity Shelter, said the renters reform bill is a game changer for England's 11 million private renters. Scrapping unfair evictions will level the playing field. I don't even understand that. Like, how's it going to level the playing field? What game are we playing here? For the first time in a long time, tenants will be able to stand up to bad behavior instead of living in fear. Well, like, to me, no offense, if you don't like where you're living, you can move somewhere else. Like, you probably should, because it's a terrible place to live. You say, well, I can't live anywhere else. Well, I don't understand. Like, you managed to live at this place. It says the white paper promises people safety and security in their home, which, it's not theirs technically. It's the landowner's home. You're renting it. Now, it's a leasehold estate, if you want to go with that. And it makes clear that landlords need to play by the rules. Like, look, I don't think you need a paper to say that landlords need to play by the rules. I mean, there are laws. Landlords should follow them. That's across the world, not just London or England, Great Britain. I don't know whatever they want to call themselves. Gone will be the days of families being uprooted and children forced to move school after being slapped with a Section 21 no-fault eviction for good reason. Now, we're going to get into the no-fault eviction shortly, I'm hoping. It says, Alicia Kennedy, the director of Generation Rent, said there was much to welcome. However, we're disappointed with the detail around the new proposed no-fault grounds, which allow landlords to evict tenants to sell or to move a family in. The government proposals still mean a renter could be evicted every 8 months due to no fault of their own. So it says, we're disappointed with the detail around the new proposed no-fault grounds, which allow landlords to evict tenants to sell or to move a family in. Move a family in over like a single person? I don't understand. It says, under Section 21 of the Housing Act, private landlords have, since the late 1980s, been able to evict tenants with just 2 months' notice, even if they have no grounds for ending the tenancy. So let's just look at it from what used to be normal in the United States, which probably isn't now because of Airbnb and VRBO. So you used to have to sign a year lease for it to be legal. Okay. The tenant and the landlord. And then the landlord had the right to the property as long as they made payments on the property that they were supposed to in a timely manner. Now, there are ways in which landlords have gotten around that, and we'll read about that in Florida, or in California, I'm sorry, or wherever. We'll look it up. I'm sorry. But in England, since the 1980s, based on this article, you could evict a tenant with 2 months' notice, even if they have no grounds for ending the tenancy. So you could say, look, it's been fun, but we're going to go ahead and evict you. Common reasons for pursuing Section 21 evictions include rent arrears, which I think is reasonable. Like, if you're not paying the rent, it's time to go. Or landlord wanting to sell the property or relet at a higher rent. Now, that is tricky, and that's what people are doing in the United States. They say, it's not safe for you to live here. We're going to fix up the property, but you got to go. Some tenants have said they were evicted as revenge for requesting repairs. I suspect that if there's 11 million rentals, that you're going to have stories all across the board. Now, are those stories enough to put together a pattern? I don't know. The bill will extend the decent homes standard to the private rented sector, requiring private landlords to keep homes clean, free from serious health and safety hazards, and in a good state of repair. Tenants will be able to take legal action to seek repayment of rents if their homes are substandard. I don't have a problem with landlords keeping their properties up and being required to do so. I think that living in quote unquote slums is one of the more unsavory parts of life in the United States. So let's go to this next article. This is what I thought was interesting. It says the Mercury News Housing. I think this is in California. It says Concord passes tenant anti-harassment ordinance over landlords' evictions. Tenants can sue landlords who violate the new ordinance. Okay. So it says Concord. The Concord City Council passed an ordinance designed to protect renters from harassment Tuesday night after hearing testimony about landlords and property managers barging into tenants' homes without permission, refusing to perform basic maintenance, and even threatening tenants with a gun. Now, just so you know where I stand on these issues, I think that you should give, when possible, and like 99% of the time, you should give proper notice to tenants that you will be entering their place. You should try to work out a mutually agreeable time. Refusing to perform basic maintenance. Now, if you're trying to perform basic maintenance, like say the dishwasher goes out and the appliance company can't get there for a week, then you got a problem. And even threatening tenants with a gun, you shouldn't. I mean, that's against the law. That's I don't understand why that would be okay ever anywhere. Do you? The ordinance, which was a year in the making, makes it illegal for landlords to interfere with their. Oh, I did it, didn't I? Oh no, good. I thought I did it so that you couldn't see the article. Let me go back. The ordinance, which was a year in the making, makes it illegal for landlords to interfere with their tenants' peaceful enjoyment of their home by doing such things as engaging in unnecessary renovations inside the unit. Now, it's not, to me, it's not. I mean, how does the tenant know if the renovations are unnecessary? Entering the unit at odd times of day or night. Like if there's a water leak at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd want my landlord to be there, even though it sucks. Failing to keep up the property or otherwise intimidating or abusing a tenant. You should never be able to abuse a tenant or intimidate them, but people get intimidated over a lot of things these days. Tenant advocates cheered the measure, which they said is necessary to hold bad landlords accountable for their unacceptable behavior. This is not in line with what I've seen in my own life. What I've seen in my own life is that if you have a shitty landlord, that's who they are. They're never going to change. That doesn't matter. They're not really interested in the law in the first place. You have a good property owner, and I would say during my experience, 85% were just outstanding landlords, really good people. So anyway, on the other side, landlord groups argued the ordinance does nothing but lay traps that set well-meaning, law-abiding property owners up for potentially devastating lawsuits. Well, that's probably true. People kind of hate landlords. Like people hate real estate agents. People hate a lot of things. Used car salesmen. I mean, that's just the way it is. People should hate politicians. If you don't, start, because they're terrible. But that's like, as a landlord, you should pretty much fight your position at all times. You should advocate for your position. So, yeah. In the end, the measure passed unanimously Tuesday night after a passionate 4-hour discussion. I don't know that it needed 4 hours. Mayor Dominic Alanio acknowledged that not everyone in the community will be happy with the council member's decision, but he said it was a move that needed to be made. Well, I mean, they're not going to be happy with any decision you make. I heard too many stories of landlords being bad actors, too many stories of landlords violating the rights the tenants do have. And yes, I do understand there are good landlords out there, but we had to discuss this and implement something like this to protect our community from certain landlords acting in bad faith. Now, my own opinion is that, like, let me just try and figure this out. You got a landlord pointing a gun at a tenant, and somehow that's not a law, like that's not against the law, and now you've made it against the law. It's hard for me to believe that. Tenant rights activists say harassment has become increasingly prevalent during the pandemic as eviction moratoriums prevented landlords from legally booting out many tenants, even if they didn't pay rent. Yes, this is a problem. It was a problem. There's no question. Instead, some landlords resorted to making their tenants' life miserable in the hope they would leave on their own. Tenants' right group Centro Ligo de la Raza reported a 70% increase in landlord harassment claims during the first year of the pandemic. It's not good. You got to pay your rent. So, I mean, there's issues. It says, in a survey of more than 700 low-income tenants in Concord, 16% reported experiencing some form of landlord harassment, according to the East Bay Alliance for a Sustainable Economy. Now, my argument there would be, I don't care if you're poor. I don't care if you're rich. You should still expect the same treatment from your landlord. I'd be interested to know, if you went outside the low-income bubble, if the 16% would hold. Harassment is particularly prevalent among low-income renters in Concord, which we don't have anything to back that up. And women and undocumented immigrants are especially vulnerable, according to the organization, with nothing to back that up. In one particularly egregious incident, a misunderstanding about a parking spot at a Concord apartment complex led to the property manager threatening tenants with a gun and saying he would shot anyone who got in his way. All right, well, that person should be arrested. I mean, that's the issue. Like, we have all these laws on the books, okay? They're not enforced equally. There's no question about that. And, you know, how's this going to stop anything? No offense. Like, I don't want tenants to be harassed. I just don't like it. I don't like it. It says the new ordinance prevents landlords from engaging in harassment, including but not limited to failing to provide services agreed to in the lease, changing a lease partway through its term. Now, I don't know how you can unilaterally change a lease legally. I don't know when that was ever legal. Failing to perform required repairs and maintenance in a timely manner. You know, like, say there's things that are broken in your apartment. You call the landlord and they say that they'll get out there, and then they're actually trying to make it so miserable that you leave. That's evil. That's evil. I mean, I have no problem with a tenant being upset about a situation like that, suing or whatever needs to be done. Abusing the right to enter a tenant's unit, attempting to force tenants to vacate a unit through intimidation or other means. I don't understand through other means. What does that mean? And interfering with a tenant's right to join a tenant's union. So now we're going to have a union that's going to solve all these problems. Now, understand, landlords and tenants have been at each other's throats since, when it started. The minute that you let your ability to rent something out has been this way. I'm just saying. Let me go back here. It says, landlords who violate the ordinance may be sued by their tenant. Well, you should be able to be sued for doing it. There's no like this. You don't need an ordinance for that. To me, a new one. If the tenant wins, the landlord may be forced to pay between $2,000 and $5,000 per violation, plus an additional $5,000 if the tenant is elderly or disabled. Well, I mean, that's like, no, like, this is me. Look, you're saying elderly or disabled. What if they're an undocumented immigrant? Shouldn't they get some sort of protection? Since, I mean, like, what about race, gender discrimination, sexual discrimination? Why did you just choose elderly or disabled? I mean, if you want to write an ordinance, like, let's make it open to everybody. Guadalupe Tolento, a 50-year-old mother of two, told the council her landlord started harassing her family after her husband complained that their freezer wasn't working. He threatened to have the sheriff's office evict them. So the guy's like, hey, man. The tenant's like, hey, man, my freezer isn't working. And the landlord's like, hey, shut up. We're going to evict you. Yeah, I wouldn't think that's fair. My two kids would hide under the bed because they heard the pounding on the door because they thought it was the police coming. She said in Spanish through an interpreter, This has traumatized our daughter to this day. She runs to hide whenever someone knocks on the door. Well, I don't understand that. Why are they pounding on the door? And why are you worried that the police are coming? I mean, this is all just, I mean, Gima Monson, a single mother, said her landlord has increased her rent more than $600 over the past 3 years, sent her threatening emails, photographed her movements, and come into her home without warning. Okay. Now, she says, I have to constantly worry about my teenage daughter when she is home alone. So rentals being raised, like, you have to understand that rents are going to go up. Owning property is more expensive. So people don't own things just for the joy of owning them, especially like investments. Like, they intend to make a return on their investment. Threatening emails, I don't know what that's about. I don't know what the threatening emails were. Photographing her movements is weird. And coming into her house without warning is also strange. Joshua Howard. See, I want you to understand, like, I think people should be treated well. All people. I don't think this is good behavior by landlords, if true. The issue is how do we solve these issues? And if we just enforce the current laws that we have, is that not enough? That's my issue. Joshua Howard, Executive Vice President of Local Public Affairs for the California Apartment Association, argued the ordinance is unnecessary because state law already protects tenants from harassment. All this new measure does, he says, is set a trap for unwary and well-meaning landlords. A landlord under this ordinance takes one step out of line, makes a mistake, or has a vendor show up late, they could be on the hook for a massive lawsuit and massive penalties. And let me just say, like, as a property manager, as someone who had to schedule workers in a unit, you know, if a guy says he's going to be there at 1 and he runs into trouble at a previous job site, he may not get there till 4. He may not get there till 5. And it's hot outside in Missouri right now. That guy could be sweaty and miserable. You should be thankful that he even shows up at all. That would be true even if you owned your own home. You'd have to deal with something like that. It says David Shub, director of the Contra Costa Association of Realtors, agreed. When owning property becomes more trouble than it's worth, it no longer makes sense to keep it. If the costs continue to rise, if the incomes from rents don't, it becomes too risky and or too punitive to become a property owner. It's time to go. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Make it so that the investment isn't there. Make it so there's no profit and see what happens. You will get substandard housing. You don't have a choice. That's what's going to happen. I just thought that's interesting. I mean, let me go back to here. I'll screw it up, of course, because what I thought was interesting about this is there's issues in England, okay? Especially this idea of, well, I'm gonna sell the unit, so you have to get out. A no fault eviction. And then in the United States, what I was seeing, I think it was in like Canada during the pandemic, they would evict people and say, well, I'm fixing up the unit, you can't stay here. Which was a dicey proposition. And I was hoping that there was going to be a little more overlap between the two. Does anybody really want to see tenants be harassed? I don't. So is this ordinance going to fix anything? No, I can tell you it's not already. Does anybody care? No. But you know that they did what they thought they should do, and so okay. Thought this was an interesting article here. It says New York City man sues mom for being a terrible landlord. It says the son alleges his mother is a mismanaging menace. It says William Copel has filed documents with the Surrogate Court of Manhattan accusing his mother, an 84-year-old Roberta Copel, of being a negligent landlady. He is also suing to have his mother and sister Alexandra replaced as trustees of the Brood's real estate profile. Now, when someone files a lawsuit, that doesn't make it true. It doesn't. It hasn't been found true in a court of law. It looks like we have some inheritance issues going on here. This is just from an upper level view. I don't know the particulars, but it's also kind of an elder dispute. I mean, 62, 84. We don't know what age the sister is. It says the litigious lad claims his mother has instructed management company, First Service Residential, not to make repairs at the family trust's 10 buildings, which are located in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Long Island, according to Cranes. Now, let's talk about this for a moment. How many of you own 10 apartment buildings in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Long Island? These are not poor people. These are not poor people. These are not people like you and me. No offense. Instead, she has allegedly instructed the company to ignore issues and simply pay the violations fees in the name of saving money, he alleges. In depositions filed with the court, Roberta claimed she visits the properties occasionally and trusts the management company to deal with all the repairs and violations. So she said, hey, if someone comes to me and says there's a problem, we fix it. They have an apartment building in Manhattan. Okay, that's probably one of the more expensive places in the United States to rent. More than one property in Manhattan. Okay. So it says this isn't the first time Roberta has made headlines for being a less than stellar owner. In 2020, the Public Advocate's Office listed her as the 47th worst landlord in New York City. Well, that's quite the distinction. I mean, the 47th worst, that means there's 46 groups worse than you. Between just 2 of the 10 properties, she was at the time averaging 442 open Department of Housing Preservation and Development violations. Last year, however, she didn't make it onto the notorious list. Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. She's no longer one of the 40s, one of the worst landlords in New York City. That, just to be on a list like that, it's impressive. That's impressive. Despite being estranged from his relatives since his father's 1996 death, after which Roberta inherited the properties, William is currently set to inherit 8 of the buildings after his mother passes away. So this guy's thinking, hey, I can't wait for this old bag to fall over dead so I can have these 8 properties. The other 2 will go to his sisters. I just thought there was one, Alexandra. It says, but he claims that as a result of his mom's mismanagement, the buildings are losing value. The situation is quite bad, he details in court documents, stating that the properties collectively have more than 1,000 violations. Well, then how come it isn't showing here when she had 442? Even before the mother and son stopped talking 25 years ago. I mean, this is like this is an ongoing family dispute that isn't getting better until everyone's dead. There was already extreme tension between them, Cranes reported. Roberta's cousin, Harriet Charles, testified in an affidavit that the mother would lock her son in dog crates and closets when she didn't want to deal with him as a child. Well, that seems like a great mom. That's sarcasm. As long as I have known Roberta, her entire world revolved around acquiring more money and wealth, and most often at the expense of others, Charles said. In my opinion, my cousin Roberta would throw anyone under the bus just to get her way when money is an issue. Well, this is someone that likes money. NYC man sues mom for being a terrible landlord. I don't believe you can be sued in the United States for being a terrible person. Is she right? I don't know. Is he right? I don't know. 84 years old. She doesn't have a lot of time left. No offense. No offense. I'm just saying. Maybe she lives to 100. Maybe she lives to 100. I mean, what's the oldest person? Like 130? I don't know. I remember reading about the oldest person, then they died, and I felt like I jinxed them. I don't know. What do you think about that? Put that in the comment sections below, or, could come in the chat and hang. Whatever. I'm feeling pretty good tonight. Why don't we do another article? I'm going to check something real quick. Well, that's a very nice house. Kind of expensive. All right, here we go. This one I thought was interesting. I have to get to it. I'm sorry. It says, this was from Realtor.com. It says, echoes of the Great Recession. Is mortgage lending becoming riskier again? Is mortgage lending becoming riskier again? That's got nothing to say for, is buying a house right now a terrible idea? Is selling your house a great idea? It says, in the wake of the devastating housing crash of the late aughts and the Great Recession that helped trigger, protections were put in place. Bad mortgages were scuttled. Lenders became far choosier on who could qualify for loans. Laws were passed to ensure the world's economy would never melt down once again due to dangerous lending. However, today's fears are mounting that riskier lending could be staging a comeback. I would just say that I don't think we ever fixed the issues, structural issues of the Great Recession. While many people were injured during the Great Recession, it could have been much worse. And I just believe that we kind of prolonged the inevitable by the policies we put in place. I don't think we've ever really fixed those structural issues with the economy. As far as the world's economy, again, I'm not a globalist. I'm for each country contributing to the world economy, but I'm not interested in this tying everything together. I don't want to. I don't think it's worth it. Look at the supply chain issues we're seeing now. In some respects, it says, as home prices hit record highs each month and mortgage rates are rapidly rising, some loan officers have begun loosening their lending standards, albeit a little, to get more mortgages into the pipeline. Now, this is being written with no evidence whatsoever. Some buyers may be overextending themselves financially in their desperation to win bidding wars. There's no some. I can tell you that based on, again, anecdotal evidence. My job, I'm watching people do things and it's like, good Lord. And more buyers are choosing mortgages that start out cheap but become more expensive over time in an uncomfortable echo of the run-up to the financial crisis. Well, why do you think that is? I want to be clear about this, okay? Some people need to buy houses and they need to buy them now. Okay. We can't just all wait, okay, until 30 years from now to go buy a house. That doesn't work. So these people that need to buy a house, they're confronted, either get a mortgage that's short term, that they can afford, that they can get into a house, or don't buy a house at all, even though they need one. Perhaps rent for another 15 years. So I don't really want to hear that it's the buyers who are overextending themselves and getting mortgages that start out cheap. That's the problem. Why is housing so expensive? What about inflation? What are we doing about inflation? Nothing. Why? Because we don't know what to do about it, because the federal government's the ones that are doing it. They print money and print money and print money, and there's got to be some sort of taxation or something to get the money back, but they don't do that. It's a mess. It says that's left many questioning just how solid mortgage lending, which was one of the primary causes of the last housing bust, is this time around. It's an especially pointed concern as fears of another recession are growing. And while most real estate and lending professionals do not believe these circumstances could lead to another crash or foreclosure crisis, that doesn't fully allay their concerns. This is stupid. While most real estate and lending professionals do not believe these circumstances could lead to another crash, how would they know? I hear this all the time. It's like, oh, well, there's just so much demand. Do these people not realize that in 2006, 2005, there was all this demand and it all magically disappeared in 2008, 2009? Lending standards in today's housing market are day and night compared to the mid-2000s housing boom, in part because of regulation put in place during the market crash. Okay. While there are stronger lending rules in place, the combination of rising home prices, rising mortgage rates, and rising inflation are straining today's home shoppers. Anecdotally, we're hearing from some loan officers that home buyers are starting to stretch just to be able to secure a home. Really? Some home buyers are starting to stretch? Give me that. They're all stretching. It's ridiculous. It's been a crappy market for months. Home buyers today are grappling with mortgage payments that are about 50% more per month than they would have been just a year ago for the same house. That's a substantial hike. No joke. especially considering home prices had risen significantly last year as well due to the double whammy of higher home prices and mortgage rates. Some buyers have responded by pushing their budgets to the outer limits. Well, they have to. This can be dangerous if buyers aren't leaving themselves a cushion for rising costs, savings for emergencies, as well as some extra cash for going out or taking a vacation. I mean, this is exactly true. The problem is inflation. The problem is spending. We did it. Now we're paying for it. It's also coming at a time when inflation is pushing the cost of necessities, everything from a gallon of milk to a gallon of gas, ever higher. Yes. And, let's be honest. We vote for these politicians. These politicians, in turn, choose whoever they want to choose to run their departments. Those people are often politically connected. It's not based on competence. More borrowers are now considering adjustable rate mortgages. The loans initially offer cheaper payments and can later increase, a risk that's causing some PTSD for those who don't want a repeat of the Great Recession. I don't want a repeat of the Great Recession, and yet I don't think there's any doubt that we're going to go to the Great Recession again. We're going to go to the Greater Recession because we didn't fix the problems from the first recession. About 8.2% of all mortgage applications were for adjustable rate mortgages, ending the week in June 3rd, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. That compared, which is 3.9% ending the week June 4th of 2021. Anytime people are looking at adjustable rates mortgage, there's risk. Most people's income doesn't fluctuate with interest rates, and people are not good at reading these very complicated lending documents. Look, it's not about a complicated lending document. It's about, hey, I don't have enough money to buy the house that I need to buy, so I'm going to do something to get into that house because, again, I need to buy it. And you say, well, that's not a right. You don't need to buy it. You can live in an apartment. You can live somewhere else. Get away. Like you only live once, okay? Like if you're 25 years old, between 25 and 30, you've got your first job, you've paid off your college debt, and you're ready to buy a home, you're supposed to wait until you're 35 or 40? Like you're supposed to hold your life? It's stupid. That I understand your sentiment, but in practice, it's just a bad argument. In addition, rising mortgage rates have left lenders scrambling to find new business. Fewer buyers can afford to purchase homes right now, and there are not many homeowners eager to refinancing their existing loans now that rates have jumped. That's right. Mortgage applications plunged 53% from a year ago on the week ending June 3rd. So lenders are making loans to applicants with lower credit scores and more debt. No, they're not. Don't start. Don't start for that. That's stupid. It's not true. You still have underwriting guidelines. This is not true. It says they're stressed for income. Yeah, that's right. He was the former CEO of the NBA and Federal Housing Commissioner during the Obama administration. They just need more loans in the hopper to stay alive. If you're stressed as a mortgage lender now, okay, then you screwed something up. You really did. Like when Better.com started putting people out of work when the market was just fantastic, that was your sign. These companies aren't being run properly. That's just the way it is. It says in April, borrowers had a median FICO score of 735. While that's considered a good score, it's down from a very good score of 761 just a year earlier. But look, credit card debt is going to go, the interest rate is going to be higher. As the interest rates go higher, so is your credit card debt. That rate is going to go higher. So you're going to have lower credit scores because you're going to have more on your credit card. You literally can't afford the basic necessities. Gas is getting close to $5 a gallon in St. Louis, Missouri. I don't know where you are. It may be way past that where you are, but it's just ridiculous. But I mean, again, we voted for these people. That's what I was told. So meanwhile, debt to income ratios increased to 39% in April versus 35% in April 21. This is a problem. The ratio refers to how much debt someone has, including their mortgage versus their earnings before taxes. The higher the score, the more debt a borrower will have. It says most lenders want borrowers to have at least a 580 FICO score and a debt to income ratio no higher than 43%. And unlike in the mid-2000s, they require extensive documentation to verify that borrowers earn as much money as they claim to avoid borrowers being unable to make their loan payments. Look, you can have the best credit in the world. You could have the best job in the world. You could have the best mortgage in the world. And if you lose that job and aren't able to get another one, you're going to have a seriously bad situation. It's just the way it is. Doesn't matter what your job is now. It matters what happens at the end of the economy and whether or not you can afford things then. There was some protection that were put in place in the wake of the last foreclosure crisis, but they're not a silver bullet. Everyone has thought that subprime lending is not going to come back. There's no reason to think that it can't or won't. These might be the market conditions that lead to that. That's silly. That's silly. So what you're saying is look, the market needs subprime loans, and so now they're going to come out of the woodwork? It says, are ARMs and interest rate only loans risky? Well, yes. So are regular mortgages. So is buying a house. It says ARMs and interest only loans could get borrowers in trouble because they become more expensive over time. In the late 2000s, this became a big problem as many homeowners couldn't afford those higher balloon payments and lost their properties to foreclosure. The loans offered today are much safer for borrowers and lenders, but there's still risk involved in taking one. ARMs generally offer a significantly lower mortgage rate for the first years of the loan, generally set at 5, 7, or 10 years. When that period ends, the rate adjusts to market rates at that point in time. If the rate is lower, then borrowers can save money each month. However, if it's higher, borrowers are on the hook for larger monthly payments for the remainder of the loan. Typically, there's a cap on just how much higher the rates can go to try to prevent the huge swings seen before the housing bubble of the 2000s. It's not hard to see the appeal of these loans. That's right. The rate for a 5-year ARM averaged 4.12 for the initial 5 years of the loan in the week ending June 9th. Meanwhile, it's 5.23 for a fixed rate loan. We're over the sixth now. We're in the 6%. So I don't even want to hear that. You're seeing a notable shift towards adjustable rate mortgages because it's so expensive. Breaking that down, it's a difference of about $240 a month on a $446,000. Now, I can't afford a $446,000 home, which is the national median list price. That assumes the borrower put down 20%, and they don't very often put down 20%. And it doesn't factor in property taxes, which are going to go up. Insurance, I guess, should go up, and any homeowners association fees. However, the fear is that after the rate adjusts, buyers may be saddled with a payment they can't afford. That's absolutely true, but that's true in any walk of life. In anything you do, there is risk, okay? Another worrisome loan is the interest-only mortgage, which has recently been making a comeback. It says Shmuel Shawitz, president and chief lending officer of Approved Funding, a mortgage lender in River Edge, New Jersey, and he's seeing more buyers look into these mortgages, although few for now are taking them out. Interest-only loans are also generally cheaper than 30-year fixed. Borrowers only pay the interest on the loan for a set period, generally 5 to 10 years. Once that ends, they must pay the interest and the principal that they owe. And suddenly those loans become significantly more expensive as buyers now need to pay back what they borrowed in a shorter time frame. Absolutely. Absolutely. The interest rates are generally higher on these loans. Ultimately, you're paying more money because you're automatically starting with a higher rate. This kind of lending might be a good choice for investors looking to make their numbers work, but regular borrowers should proceed with caution. They don't offer larger down payments, and the home prices fall. They could find themselves underwater on their loans. This might also have trouble. They might also have trouble affording their mortgage payments when they're responsible for paying back the interest, the principal and the interest. It's 100% true. If someone is using these loan alternatives, an interest only or an ARM, because they otherwise wouldn't qualify for a loan with a higher payment, then perhaps they should think twice about it. Yes, true. Should think twice. But let me tell you something. Like, affordability is such a problem now that it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, if you need to buy a house, again, what are you going to do? You have to figure out something. You know, I mean, I just don't know. I just don't understand. Like, people are trying to make things work. Oh, I got a connection unstable. Not good. Hope it gets better. Sorry about that. If I pixelated, I'm sorry. Anyway, but for home buyers, they may be a cost-effective option. Most people stay in mortgages for only 5 to 7 years before refinancing loan or selling the house and buying another one. I don't know about that. Most. If someone planning to stay in the home only 5 to 7 years, ARMS could help them save quite a bit of cash. Very few people keep a mortgage for 30 years. First-time buyers move up and people get transferred. It's true. More buyers are stretching their budgets to afford homes. Certified financial planner Roger Ma recommends buyers don't spend more than 28% of their income on housing. Well, and think about that. If the average home is like $400,000, they should also save about 1% of the purchase price of their home every year for maintenance and repairs. He also advises clients to examine their expenses and what they're spending to figure out what they can realistically afford before they enter into an emotional bidding war, often frenzied process where they might be tempted to overextend their budgets. Do that pre-work so that when things get crazy, you have guideposts in place. Ask, can I really afford this on an ongoing basis? Well, we're there. That's tough to do in today's market when the median list prices were up 17% at the end of to $447,000 nationally. At the end of the day, despite what the lender may tell them, home buyers really need to think, can I really afford this payment? We're creating a whole bunch of people who are house poor. It's only getting worse. And frankly, it's being overlooked. It is because we don't have a way to discuss it like in a way that makes sense. Like, again, you say you need to buy a house that you can afford. Dude, I'm making $150,000. I'm making $200,000 a year, and the best home that I can afford with interest rates is like $300,000. It doesn't make any sense. That's the issue. And most people aren't making $150,000 a year. Most people are making like 60. So it's like, what can they really afford in this market? The amount you're spending on rent is not that far. That's right. This is the issue. It says those who don't want to get in over their heads with their housing payments may not have any other choices. Rents continue surging. That's right. So now there's no safe haven in renting either. Rents jumped 15.5% in May compared with the year earlier. The thinking is that with home ownership, they'll at least be building equity and lock some of their housing costs. While property taxes, insurance costs, and utility bills might rise, they've locked in the largest part of their housing bills. That is not a great strategy going forward. Like, hey, we're renting, but that's better than, or that's not better than buying, because if we buy, we lock in our huge payment, but we still have to worry about 10 other payments that are coming down the pipe. Not a good thing. It says the amount you're spending on rent is not that far off from the amount it would cost you to purchase a home. Buyers are stretching, and they have to stretch sometimes. As the mortgage payments stay fixed, their incomes go up and that payment becomes more comfortable. Most of mortgage broker Andrew's clients are having such a difficult time having an offer on a home accepted. They're not going to let the cost of the mortgage stop them. Desperation will cause some people to say, maybe I'll get a second job or we'll figure it out, because what's the choice? That is a reasonable thing to say. What is the choice? What is the alternative? How do I fix this issue? Another foreclosure crisis isn't likely for this reason. It says many Americans are worried another recession is headed for the U.S. economy. It is going to happen. But those expecting a recession to bludgeon home prices, making homeownership more attainable for those still financially secure, like during the Great Recession, might not want to hold their breath. There are still far more buyers than there are homes for sale. Well, and the reason why is because the market's locked up. We're seeing market failures in many parts of our economy. When you have shortages, that's a market failure. Who is causing the market failures? Those people in charge of policy. Those people are terrible. You should be very, very cautious about these people. They're not your friends. It would take an influx of cheap housing to hit the market, such as another foreclosure crisis, or for prices to fall steeply. And that doesn't seem likely. Well, we don't know. We don't know. Homeowners struggling to make their mortgage payments could sell their properties rather than lose their homes to foreclosures. Many would be able to walk away with a profit. However, where are they moving to that they can afford at that point in time? See, that's the issue. Like, you got a family of 5. You're going to go lease an apartment, 3-bedroom apartment? In addition, home sellers can afford to be choosier, so they are. Cash offers have proliferated through the housing market. Buyers who don't have all cash are scrambling to come up with larger down payments to make their offers stand out. Sellers have so many eager buyers for their homes, they're less likely to accept offers from buyers on the margins, such as those with smaller down payments. This means many of today's home buyers go into their homes with ample equity. That's terrible. Terrible. Lending has been pristine since the financial crisis. Mortgage lenders have been very cautious, says Mark Zanni, chief economist at Moody's Analytics. So we're very unlikely to get a significant increase in defaults, foreclosure, and foreclosure distress sales. That's if people don't lose their jobs. What if they do? Then what happens? Does anybody want to take that one up? I don't think you do. No. That's where I'm at tonight. I don't. You know what? I'm getting kind of tired. It's 10 o'clock, my time. I've been on for an hour and 15 minutes. Hope you're doing well. I hope you made it through. If you made it through this long, subscribe. We're going to be friends. You might as well just get used to it. Subscribe. I mean, do you want to click the notification button? I'm not doing very well with scheduling my stuff in advance lately. I apologize. I could do better. But yeah. Anyway, I'm actually going to just shut everything down. I need to fix the description. I'll fix it tomorrow. I'll fix the thumbnail tomorrow. And I'm going to go to bed. Maybe read on my phone for a little bit. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will catch you probably tomorrow. Peace.